Good afternoon, members of Education Committee, and thank you to Councilwoman Helen Gim and Janie Blackwell for standing with teachers and professionals that serve our city's young people. And I'm so happy to be here with these teachers. I just met them, but thank you so much for your comments. It really helps us all have perspective. So my name is Sonya Britnall. I'm a speech language pathologist for Philadelphia School District, and I'm grateful to be in a room filled with people who want the best relationships for our kids. And that was such a great ending point, because what I want to talk about is relationships. So I've been with the school district for 8 years, and I'm part of the leadership team for speech language pathologists. So we serve children with special needs. I'm in the special education department. Speech language pathologists are experts in language development and acquisition. So we know how to support verbal communication for children on the autism spectrum that may require specialized devices or techniques to communicate. We support students that struggle with early literacy skills, language development, narrative development, social communication, articulation, phonology, fluency, stuttering, swallowing, and voice disorders. So we work in a lot of different settings: hospitals, nursing homes, preschools, and of course schools. I'm telling you this because we have other places we can work. So for SLPs, we can work in other places. Right now we have about 120 speech language pathologists in the school district of Philadelphia. And to give you an idea of how many students we serve thousands of students with speech and language disorders. We are reviewing 2,100 files for incoming kindergarten kids, and I'm certain a great many of them receive speech therapy. And that will be just for incoming K next year. So and more are coming, by the way, those aren't all the files. Before I speak about the impact that retention and recruitment has had on my position, I just want to highlight that building strong relationships is central to student achievement. John Hattie is a leading educational researcher, and he's found that positive student and teacher relationships have the strongest impact on student achievement, more than professional development. So and socioeconomic status. Every time our school district loses a teacher or professional that directly impacts students, that weakens the chances of our students' academic success. So again, retention, recruitment, retention. Teacher and staff retention issues directly impact the relationships students have with teachers have with parents, and then teachers have with their school teams, the other specialists, the school administrators, the occupational therapists, the ESOL teacher. And so this is really important, especially for kids with learning differences. So having a consistent teacher or educational team promotes better learning outcomes. So this year, almost half, 47% of the Philadelphia School District speech language pathologists are substitute positions, contracted through multiple private agencies. Within those substitute positions, there will be at about an 80% turnover for the first year of those speech language pathologists that are contracted positions. Even worse, our young school district therapists, and when I say school district therapists, I mean they're actually hired by the school district. They're not that, over almost half now of contractors. Those folks that have been working, again, 2 to 5 years, they're now leaving. It's just not financially viable for them to stay here. So you're hearing this thread that we've all mentioned about people that have been with us for 1 to 5 years now. Speech pathologists require specialized undergraduate degree programs, 2 years of full-time master's level work, and an additional clinical fellowship year postgraduate degree to achieve our national certificate, which is CCCSLP. According to 2014 American Speech Language Hearing Association School Survey, and that's our national organization, school-based speech language pathologists in the Northeast region have a median income of $72,000. Specifically in Pennsylvania, that figure is $68,000. In the Philadelphia School District, speech pathologists make considerably less, especially with many of our clinicians frozen at step 1, master's level, $46,694. So after 5 years of recognized service, if we were following the promised contract, these clinicians would expect to make $60,000 after 5 years of service, or after 5 step pays. And then speech language pathologists in Philadelphia would only achieve the Northeast region and PA median incomes after 10 years at step 10. We would be at that median income level. I hope that's clear. So I'm not there yet. I've been with the district 8 years, so I haven't reached any of those milestones. And I guess I just wanted to make a side comment after listening to people talk about advanced degrees. I read in the paper this morning that it sounds like the administration is thinking that we don't need to restore pay for advanced degrees. And I just wanted to mention, for speech language pathologists, our degree is typically over 30 graduate credits, so a lot of times we'll qualify for master's plus 30 coming out of graduate programs, and it really makes a difference. So this summer we had an applicant who wrote to me and said, I'm trying to find out how much I'm going to be paid, which is an issue, finding out how much they're going to be paid. And so she said this amount of money, and she was quoting me the master's level, and I said, wait a minute, I bet your graduate degree program has more than 30 credits and that you may qualify for master's plus 30. She did, and she took the job, and she's bilingual. So, to me, it was fantastic. We need that to attract people, especially in a specialized field. So there's an unfortunate pattern of speech pathologists being pushed out of our school district. This year we lost 4 school district therapists just weeks before school started. They held out hope all summer that the contract would be resolved, and after the court case, when nothing happened, they gave up. These resignations were therapists frozen at step 1 for all of their tenure with the School District of Philadelphia. And some of them hadn't received the additional education credits. They had achieved a master's while at the school district and did not receive any recognition for that as well. 2 people that resigned last year were leadership people. To me, that's huge when your leadership team is leaving. And one of them was also bilingual. So we serve a diverse community, and we need more bilingual people, not less. So right now we have about half of our speech language staff as contractors, and this causes a lack of continuity of services. And actually, you just hit on a lot of the reasons why it's a problem. The school teams become mistrustful. The parents don't know this person. The teachers don't know this person. We're always starting over. And it's worse because most of these folks don't come back the next year, or they might even leave after 3 weeks here, after 4 weeks here, or they might leave in January. But since it takes 2 to 3 years for speech pathologists to build relationships with students, teachers, and parents, this model of using contractors ultimately hurts children and families. And it reduces outcomes for our students. And it's more expensive because we hired a middleman. So it takes 2 to 3 years, I keep bringing this up, for us to build working relationships with students, families, teachers, and administrators, because specialist support staff like myself serve 2 to 4 school buildings. We have multiple school teams, and we serve up to 65 different students and families. So when I say we're losing people that have been with us for over 2 years, we're in really big trouble. And it goes without saying that the contract agencies, like when we use them, it ensures teacher turnover. That's why people are contractors in most cases, because they want a short-term position, so it's regardless of skills. So right now, use of contractors is necessary when we can't hire and retain qualified staff, but it carries short-term and long-term negative consequences. I think we're wasting time and money on short-term employees when we need to refocus resources on retention and recruitments. So let me talk really quick, well, probably it won't be that quick, I'll try, about why we're having difficulty retaining speech-language pathologists. First, as I mentioned before, speech-language pathologists can find jobs elsewhere. According to our American Speech-Language Hearing Association, in October 2016, only 1% of American Speech-Language Hearing Association certified speech pathologists were unemployed or seeking work at the end of 2015. That's below the national unemployment rate of 5% and has remained steady over the past 10 years. So if you know someone who's interested in speech therapy, it's a great field to go into. The biggest problem we have is the lack of a contract. People are frozen in step pay, and it's really impacted our clinicians. Almost all teachers I know now work a second job and are tired. This reduces energy for students during the school day, as well as decreasing time for planning and preparation. Almost all teachers I know now are considering another career. I think about it too sometimes. Almost all of these same people love working with children, and it's a terrible, sad thing. We must have a contract that teachers can talk positively about. Right now, all we talk about is how demoralized we are, especially when we read comments from 440 that teachers haven't been giving back all this time. So other reasons why it's difficult to retain and recruit speech therapists, get this, we can find better salaries in early intervention, hospitals, or in charter schools. Frozen contract stopped incentive pay that we used to receive something called a critical shortage bonus. So if you were a high needs teacher in any field, part of special education, there was an annual bonus for staying with the district, and that has been frozen and not paid out over these years as well. There are fear of threats that will no longer have step pay, or that proposal that came out with only the 3 steps. That was a turnoff to many people, and they thought that they left after that. We're concerned that the proposed pay doesn't reflect the educational investment required for speech-language pathologists' master's degrees. A lot of the therapists owe $50,000 to $100,000 in student loan debt, and so they need to earn a salary. We have concerns that payments into health benefits will cause a net loss in salaries after waiting for years for promised step pay, and concerns that the district will decide to contract all of our jobs, which I personally feel would be a monumental disservice to our children. And then there's fear of instability, like a charter school will take over your school or your school will be closed. We've also talked about working conditions, so there's instability such as changes to your school assignment throughout the school year because of staff turnover or being asked to cover schools when they don't have a dedicated therapist for the year. Stressful working conditions, teams frustrated by turnover, and we have some parents now that have been within the system that will ask specifically for a school district therapist over a contracted therapist that they would expect turnover. They've had experiences with turnover. Then we have stress related to an increase in litigious parents in special education. It could be reactionary to the seemingly inadequate school system based on years of underfunding and turnover, but it is stressful. Overcrowded school buildings without physical space for specialists. So since the school closures, a lot of our buildings went from having room to being crowded. So some real examples, I have one therapist who's working in a small room connected to the men's bathroom, one working in a closet without windows or temperature control, working in spaces without furniture, such as students sitting on milk crates during therapy, sharing the library while there's a full class running and another specialist is fighting for your little table. You probably know these issues too, don't you? Or another therapist is being asked to move from room to room during teacher prep periods to service students because there's no room for her to work in. I don't know if that makes sense to other people. So what that means is when one class is at gym, music, or another special class, that therapist has to find that room and take her students in that room to work with them. Wow. So a few recommendations for things that I believe are critical for charting a path forward. Negotiate a contract that reflects step pay for years' experience that is competitive to neighboring school districts. I was disappointed to read today that, I had to say this, sorry, I wrote this comment. So I saw today in the paper that when we go back years of service, people would only be moving up one step, not the years that we've been waiting. Did I understand that right? Yes. Okay, that's rather disappointing. Contracts should include incentives for hiring hard-to-fill areas, including the critical shortage bonus that had previously been in place, provide sign-on bonuses for SLPs and other hard-to-fill positions that are payable over 3 years' time, especially since a lot of people leave after the first year. It kind of turns the school district into a training ground for a lot of these folks. They get their clinical C's, clinical degree, and they move on. Consider a bonus or specialized incentives for CCC SLP, like a national board certificate, since it's a nationally recognized certificate, and to provide a physical environment that allows for specialists to work effectively and with students. We do some things that are really great. We have great professional developments that are tailored to speech therapists. Keep doing that. Keep allowing speech therapists to mentor one another. Continue to advocate for federal student loan forgiveness programs that reimburse for working in Title I schools. and continue to encourage master's graduate level students to do practicums here. So I believe we also need to improve human resource hiring practices for special education services across the board. So over the past few years, it's fallen on to us, the lead speech pathologists, to organize job fairs, actively promote our needs nationally, and even to push for timely follow-through with HR applicants. For example, I tried to push for us to have a presence. We just had the National Association here in Philadelphia last week, and I tried really hard to get us to put a booth at this job fair that they have with over 15,000 speech therapists from all over the country, and then I realized that wasn't my job. So we need to identify at minimum a point person for special education. Maybe there is someone now. For hiring, someone who's dedicated to recruiting and timely hiring. And we also need to nurture relationships and partnerships with our local universities for hard-to-fill positions. I greatly appreciate you allowing me to share my experiences with you. I share them in the hope that it ultimately leads to improving our children's education and future. Thank you so much.